The world has changed, and with it, the Sarkari Khalsa must follow. Maharaja Ranjit Singh united us under one banner just 4 decades ago, and though we now stand as one, there are many around us who would have that undone. To our west, the Afghans remain a concern, but it is to our east we must keep our eyes trained. The thirst of the English East India Company knows no limits, and they stare greedily at the 5 rivers of Punjab, licking their lips as they stand over the corpses of Marathas and Mughals alike. The Maharaja has given some ground to the company, a small piece of Punjab, a bone thrown to distract the dogs while he prepares for war, and we prepare to sacrifice all for our continued freedom. Ganda Singh Dogra, leader of the intelligentsia, renowned writer, famed jingoist. Hey everybody, it's PartyElite. Welcome to our Sikh Empire run in Victoria 3. We're going to be playing in a complete sandbox, and we're going to go for the classic Colonize the Colonizers run here. Again, starting as the Sikh Empire and subjugating Great Britain is an achievement, so we'll see if we can't accomplish that as well. But before we get over here, we have to start over here. There is a lot of work to be done locally. We do want to try and secure the subcontinent and actually form India well before the actual historical date of independence in 1947, which is beyond the game's actual end date. To do that, we'll have to oust the East India Company, we'll have to take over all of their current puppet states in the subcontinent as well, and we will of course also have to oust the French from Pondicherry. Then we will also kick the Portuguese out of Goa, something that didn't actually happen until 1961 if memory serves me correctly, but that is also well beyond our patience and the game's end date. So we'll try and get all that done ASAP and then turn our attention to other British colonies around the world before striking at Great Britain itself and hopefully again subjugating it and acquiring that achievement, which is when I think we'll call it a run. My initial plan was to actually make this a one and done, so 1 episode for the whole run, but I do think it'll take a few more episodes than that. It's going to be a highly edited approach, which is very different for this channel, so I do hope you enjoy it. If you do, or if you do not, let me know by leaving a like and or a comment down below, giving me your feedback, your thoughts and opinions, whichever way it swings, because that helps me make decisions on the channel with regards to how to cover Victoria 3 in the future. With that said, let's go ahead and hit that start button and see exactly how all this plays out. Now, a big thing about playing as the Sikh Empire is RNG. It is highly likely that everybody around us hates us, and it's also highly likely that the people within the nation are also sort of standing against what we need in order to see success. So let's go ahead and take a quick look around, and the first order of business is actually to check what the East India Company thinks about us, and they are actually conciliatory. That is a surprise. That is a surprise that actually could work in our favor, because that means they're not likely to be the aggressor against us. It should give us enough time to actually secure a foothold over here before we push against them. Not only a foothold over here in terms of conquest and the expansion of our market, but also with regards to any allies we might try and make overseas with whom we can trade, with whom we can get an involvement should things, catch fire. So we'll see how this plays out. That's actually quite fortunate. The first target of our assault then will have to be Sindh. It pretty much always should be, I think, because Sindh is our access to the seas and access to the greater world in terms of trade and diplomacy. We will, of course, on the topic of diplomacy, declare an interest in South India to kick things off, though, because that'll give us access to diplomacy with the French and the Portuguese alike. Very expensive as far as influence is concerned, but I do want to improve relations with at least France. Again, if push comes to shove against the East India Company, I want somebody who's keeping their potential British allies preoccupied. Anyway, with that done, let's go ahead and take a look at some of our other circumstances, primarily with regards to our interest groups. I want to see how our armed forces look. This is pretty good. They're neutral to start with. They have legal guardianship as a result of, I think, traditionalist. Is that right? Yes, that is right. Now, I'm not a big fan of their policies and ideologies perhaps, but I am a big fan of their highest level trait. Patriotic fervor gives us plus 15% offense and plus 15% defense, which is absolutely huge. So if we can get their happiness to plus 10, or their approval rating, I should say, to plus 10, we'll be in a very good spot whenever war comes. With regards, regardless of who it's against, that extra offense and defense is huge. So that's great to see. Things are actually, you know what, the dice gods seem to have been on our side. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a look at the tech tree over here. Of course, a lot of things are going to spread towards us just from our neighbors and from the world over, so I'm not sure exactly what's going to end up spreading. However, I do know what I want to start with with our own decision making over here, and that is urban planning. I want to make sure we get urban planning because urban planning will allow us to actually build faster, and building faster is extremely important for a developing nation, because without more factories and plantations and all that good stuff, we're not going to see any progress as far as our economy, our markets, our ability to trade, our position in the world stage, as it were. So building faster is extremely important, which is why we're getting a construction sector done first. And after that construction sector has been expanded, we're also going to build a tooling workshop. And apart from the tooling workshop, I want to get some paper mills going as well. Queuing these guys up because we'll be needing tools for a variety of reasons, but paper as well. Paper in particular is needed to improve our government administration buildings, to get them to use filing cabinets, and to actually get higher taxation capacity and bureaucracy both. As you can see, bureaucracy is very low for us. It's not a very good number up over here, and if it goes into the negative, we actually see tax waste, which we can't really afford. We're already seeing a negative budget, so we can't really afford tax waste on top of all that. So we want to get papers started sooner rather than later. In fact, with that said, I'm going to actually rearrange this and get the paper mill happening before the tooling workshop. It'll still take 55 weeks, but better late than never. Better late than never. As for the tools from the tooling workshop, we need those to help produce more meat. Livestock ranches are producing meat right now, but it is prohibitively expensive for our pops, as it always is in the Sikh Empire to start with. And to counteract that, we can get the butchering tools going, but if the second word in butchering tools didn't give it away, we need tools for that. And we do not have tools in this market. If I recall correctly, I do not believe there are any tools available, so we'd see a goods shortage immediately, and beyond that as well, nobody near us actually produces tools apart from our future enemies. So I don't want to get too reliant on the East India Company, or rather I should say the British market. So just something to keep in mind in terms of our plans for the time being. We want to go ahead and get some decrees going as well. Road maintenance will increase construction efficiency, and will also encourage agricultural industries in Punjab, because those will help actually increase the productivity of these very same livestock ranches and the wheat farms as well, who, by the way, I should switch to citrus orchards, because fruits are also extremely expensive in the Sikh Empire. So by getting the fruits in there, we should hopefully make standard of living go higher for our pops rather readily, and that should help us with loyalists and keeping the number of radicals down, as well as we go from swift war to swift war. Sugar, though, looks like an ideal thing to export, since we're producing far too much of it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the export opportunities over here, over to Kalat to start with. Let's get that going. Again, immediate tax waste, of course, because of the bureaucracy cost. Not the end of the world just quite yet. I don't know if the tariffs on sugar will make up for our loss there, but let's go ahead and make sure that sugar is being taxed heavily on its way out, and see if we can't counteract the actual loss there in terms of tax waste. I don't think this will grow in size. Yeah, it's not valuable enough to grow in size. Might grow to regret that, might cancel that route eventually. We'll see how it plays out. But on the topic of our economy, let's go ahead and adjust our budget over here. I would like to get, I really think just to get us into the positives, we might need to tax grain. 3.93, I don't know. Let's see. Lower government wages. We don't want to reduce military wages. In fact, when we go to war, we'll want to increase it to get that +5 to armed forces approval, and hopefully get that benefit we were talking about earlier. But what do we do here? If we remove this, grain 3.93, see, this hurts a lot of our population. Everybody requires grain, especially the lower strata. So we might see some loss in standard of living as a result of this consumption tax, but for the time being, I think it's necessary to keep us in the green, if not, less in the red. For the time being, I would hate to see this dip too hard, as it will when we go to war, right? And we're pretty much right away going to go to war. Before we go to war, though, there are a few laws that need to be changed. I would very much like to get serfdom abolished, because by abolishing serfdom, we open up the option to get schools going. Religious schools at first, they will increase education access, and they will also increase the rate of conversion, which is extremely important to us, because in the Sikh Empire, we only accept the state religion right now, which is Sikh. However, we have a lot of Sunni and No Gelugpa, I don't think, but we have a lot of Sunni individuals. Just in Punjab alone, we have a very large Sunni and Hindu population alike, so that conversion rate increase is going to be very helpful for us, and we might choose different kinds of schools later, but for the time being, that'll be helpful enough. Let's go ahead and get, we actually can't promote national values, eh? Not enough authority to do that. That's too bad. Promoting national values will allow us to actually reduce the number of non-accepted faith and culture people as well. However, it seems as though that's not really going to be an option while we are taxing grain. Okay, liquor. How much money are we actually making off of you? We remove that. You know what? Well worth it. Well worth it. Let's get promote national values in Punjab, and that should help us a little bit as well. But like I was saying, in order to get to religious schools, first order of business is to get rid of serfdom. And so we need to get rid of serfdom. In order to get rid of serfdom, we actually need to get one of the interest groups into our government that actually cares about that change. The landowners will be upset about this change, of course, but for the time being, they can deal. So let's get the rural folk in here. Rural folk should be enough. It'll take a long time because the chance of success here is quite low, 12.2%. We'll need to get involved personally, I think, in order to actually make this happen. But that's just step one in getting our schools going. And eventually, we'll want to, the other important law we'll want to get passed as soon as possible is with regards to our economic system. We need to get agrarianism out there as soon as possible, because that will allow us to get the investment pool growing, because at the time, for the time being, we actually don't have an investment pool under the traditionalist economic system. But under agrarianism, we will see an investment pool grow, and we can use that investment pool for agriculture, plantations, ranches, and infrastructure. And plantations, ladies and gentlemen, plantations are what we want, because plantations allow us to make opium, and our next door neighbor is a huge consumer of opium. There will be a whole war about that, but after that war is done and the ban on opium has been lifted, this will make us a ton of money in the form of tariffs. Opium itself is largely produced in Delhi over here, as well as Awadh and North and South Bengal. So these are vital states that will want to take over as soon as possible. But at the same time, we do have some capabilities here, as well as in Afghanistan, Kalat, and Sindh, states that we don't own yet. Soon enough, though. The other thing we want to wait for, again, is to make sure our South India interest gets in place so we can start improving relations with not just France, but also others, depending on how much it costs to improve relations with France. We can't do that right now because we don't have a shared interest over territory, but France might also declare an interest in North India, which will work out for us too. With that said, let's see how it all plays out. Yeah, this is quite interesting. So cotton gin, army reserves, and currency standards are spreading. These are pretty good. Fantastic, actually. We got very lucky with the technologies that are spreading through us, and it looks like there's a preserve serfdom political movement already with a lot of support. All right, you know what? These guys need to be suppressed. I do not have the authority to do so. That grain money is really helpful, though. You can see despite the grain tax, we are already in the negative again, so I can't really afford to get rid of that, I don't think. Suppression will cost 200 authority. Noble privileges is reducing how much tax income we're getting. I suppose I could get rid of some of these decrees. You know what? Let's get rid of promote national values and road maintenance as well for the time being. Plus 25% infrastructure, plus 10% state construction efficiency. That's only helpful when the base number is quite high as well. So we'll get rid of that for the time being, and that will allow us to, yes, suppress the landowners, because they're going to cause us a lot of trouble. With the amount of power they have, we have to cut them down to size, right? We have to cut them down to size. All right, there's the British response to the opium ban. Great Britain has responded angrily with multiple threats towards the government of Great Qing. So that's to our benefit. What's not to our benefit, though, down over here, you can see a lot of import routes for artillery. And I don't like that. I don't want to put an embargo on all of these nations. And it might even be difficult to do so in some cases. But it is a little concerning, because if we take a look at our artillery situation, yeah, it's going to get very expensive as these import routes become more and more sort of profitable, I guess, for the trade route itself, but not so much for our nation. So I'm going to go ahead and actually increase the tariffs on exports, because if they want our artillery, they can pay for them. They can pay for them with an arm and a leg, and hopefully that'll actually dissuade these from leveling up too much, and will hopefully make some money for the government as well. You can see we go from negative 2.02 to negative 1.95. That's not too bad. If we pop you up as well, and perhaps these guys all tariffed as high as possible. There we go. Because I don't think they'll be leveling up anytime soon, so we might as well make as much money as we can from their current levels as they stand. At the same time, the radical count and the loyalist count are both on their way up. Hopefully, hopefully we find a good balance there. At Sindh, are they making their port? They are. 55 weeks to get it done. It's almost tempting to let that go through, because then we can conquer Sindh after it has its port completed, and we won't actually need to build it ourselves. All right, with our interest in place, we can go ahead and improve relations with France, and we can improve relations with Portugal as well. That takes our influence down a significant amount, but we have enough left over, I think, to improve our relations with the Great Qing as well. If we can eventually get into a trade agreement with them, that'll be wonderful for us as far as exporting opium into their territory is concerned. So improve relations there, and let's improve relations with the Russians as well. Can I not? Looks like we do not have enough influence for that. That's okay. We're just short. We can instead improve relations within the East India Company's puppets instead. Why don't we go ahead and chase after Awadh? Sure. Begin improving relations there. We might eventually, I don't know, find a way to bring them under our fold if we're lucky. It doesn't look like the French have expressed an interest in North India, which is unfortunate. That's a good way to get them involved in our moves, but they seem the least bit interested. We're still able to use against South India, of course, as a way to improve relations with them, and they are protective, which is good. Which is very good, actually. That could work very heavily in our favor. We'll see how it does play out as the construction sector over here is about to be done. As this week turns around, that'll start producing a bit more construction, and hopefully we'll not too long from now we'll be able to actually get the second tier done for our construction sectors. Thing is, though, this needs steel, or iron, I should say, and I just want to point out that iron is not readily available in our market either. It either needs to be imported or produced locally, and the only local producers are the states of Baluchistan and eastern Afghanistan, neither of which belong to us. And the thing is, neither Kalat nor Afghanistan are interested in producing iron. So if we want iron, importing it isn't going to be cheap, and producing it ourselves is going to be impossible unless we own Baluchistan or perhaps eastern Afghanistan. So that's something we have to consider as well. Now, while I do wait for this port to be built, we could go to war with Kalat instead. If I try to conquer this state, quite a few people might get involved, and the hit to infamy is quite large as well. Great Britain, are you not involved in this current play against Great Qing? Not yet. Maybe we'll wait for that, and that way we can take Kalat and save Sindh for after their port has been completed, so we don't have to pay for that ourselves. Let's keep an eye out for the Great Qing, Great Britain political situation. Well, it's not exactly what I was hoping for, but it looks like the French and the British are rivals now, or at least France has declared Great Britain to be their rival, so that might work in our favor in the subcontinent over here. In fact, if we go to check in on a conquer state move over here, the French are just not interested in North India, so they're not about to dive in. But it does look like Great Britain is no longer interested here either. Their interest in the Persia strategic region, which is what Kalat actually falls into. Sorry, I said North India, but North India ends at the Sikh Empire, just before Pashtunistan, if memory serves me correctly. Strategic regions. Yes, that's right. So the British gave up their interest in the Persia strategic region, which means they're not likely to get involved. Russia, however, might come in. And Afghanistan might as well if we move in towards Kalat. So if Afghanistan gets involved, that actually works in our favor because we can counteract them as well. And if you'll take a look at their military capabilities, if we go ahead and dive on into their barracks, you'll see that their capabilities are actually rather pathetic. They're using irregular infantry. They have no artillery. I believe Kalat is in a similar state as well. If we take a look at their barracks, same thing, irregular infantry, no artillery. Meanwhile, if we take a look at the glorious Punjabi barracks over here, you'll see we are using line infantry as well as cannon artillery. So we will have the upper hand against both Kalat and Afghanistan if they work together, though of course if Russia comes for us, let's go ahead and take a look at one of their barracks wherever possible. They've got line infantry and mobile artillery, so they're a bit of a concern if they get directly involved. We could wait until their push into the Kazakh territory gets a bit more precariously balanced. If we take a look at, what am I looking for here? This screen, they are slowly expanding into Kazakh territory, so that might trigger a bit of an issue for them. Again, let's hold off. Patience is a virtue, right? Patience is a virtue. Let's not be too patient at the same time, though. We still have the paper mills here being built, and down over here at Sindh, we are seeing the port just 40 weeks away at this point in time. Let's see what happens after a handful of days pass over here, at least until these 5 days, 9 days, and 8 days pass. If a diplomatic play triggers, we'll be home free to strike at Kalat and perhaps Afghanistan as well. And over here you can see Great Britain is now trying to take a treaty port against the Great Qing. So this is all happening all at once over here, folks. 4 days until these two push through as well. And are we going to see a rise against these invaders? No, we won't. Fair enough. Let it be then. Let's turn our attention to Kalat. Let the Russians get involved if they want. Ideally, it'll be Afghanistan diving in. So over to conquer Baluchistan. We'll mobilize when the diplomatic play has gotten a little bit further along. I'm a little concerned Afghanistan's just going to stay neutral. Again, not the end of the world. It would have been ideal if they got involved, but we'll see what actually ends up happening. Let's see how this diplomatic play plays out. Well, crap. All right, Russia's gotten involved supporting Kalat, so that means they're not going to back down. I was hoping that they might back down, but with Russia on their side, they've become a bit cocky. However, we still might have the good fortune of the Russians needing to deal with a Kazakh uprising in the middle of this war, and then the Russians might be too distracted to get involved down over here. That's all we can hope for, but I'm still feeling pretty good about our chances over here, because taking Kalat will be very quick. Let's go ahead and get just Ranjit Singh over here, the Maharaja of the Sikh Empire, to mobilize with his 60 battalions. You know what? Do we even need that many? Maybe we should just get Zorwar Singh over here, mountain combat expert, plus 25% defense in elevated terrain. He's also reserved, a little less popular, but a bit more healthy as a result. Wow, much less popular over here. But with his 20 battalions, he should be able to take on the 12 of Kalat, and that should be enough without costing us way too much money. Again, mobilizing troops is expensive. Let's go ahead and get him to advance the front over here. And as soon as the war kicks off, I think we'll be okay. Before we get into the countdown to war, I want to make sure I add some war goals over here, because if the Russians are going to get involved, I want to make them pay for it, should we be able to defeat them. Again, I think we'll likely just let the war with Kalat end and get a white peace with the Russians if they stick around after the fact. But if things are going our way, and if the Russians are distracted and I can make some war reparations off them, that sounds like a good idea. In fact, why don't we also try and force them to recognize us? What else are we using these maneuvers for, after all, right? So let's get those two war goals in place. We still have quite a few maneuvers left. We could force them to transfer the Grand Duchy of Finland. No, we can't actually, but that would have been funny, I suppose. Alternatively, we can get them to open their market. I see no real value in that. I suppose I could export a lot to them and avoid their tariffs hurting us, so there is that. But, and again, what else are we using these maneuvers for? So you know what? Sure, let's go for it. We don't have to enforce all of them, but let's go for it and see what we can make Russia do. And it looks like war has broken out. Fair enough. To arms we go, and as you can see, we're immediately advancing to kick off a fresh battle without wasting any time. I'm sure Zorwar Singh over here will make quick work of Sherdil, Kasarani, and bring us Kalat very quickly here. One battle has already kicked off, and yeah, I see I'm not even remotely concerned about our performance over here. This is going to hurt for this first battle, reducing how many provinces we capture, but I think we're doing all right. Haven't lost a single battalion, eating some morale damage, lost about less than 300 soldiers perhaps by the time this battle ends. Yes, and okay, we've taken 11 provinces. Things are going to be just fine here. So the paper mills in Punjab just completed being built, and while we do have the tooling workshop up next in the queue, I'm actually thinking we're going to flip it around a little bit, because the tooling workshop can't actually work without any iron, and it'll be some time before we acquire that. So why don't we go ahead and actually upgrade the paper mills first, because that way we'll have more paper coming through, and that'll allow us to actually afford the upgraded filing cabinets production method for the government administration. I think if we switch it over right now, it'll still be rather expensive, so we're going to just wait for the paper mills to upgrade and expand a little bit. This will help us get more bureaucracy going. It'll help us close the gap over here as far as taxation capacity. If I didn't highlight that before, then I'm highlighting it now. This is a huge problem, so it'll help us with this, and it'll allow us to actually make more money off of taxes. And then once we finish taking over Kalat, we'll actually get the iron mines going, and once we have an iron mine secured, at that point in time, we can consider building a tooling workshop, because until that point in time, or until we have access to a port from which we can import the iron, there's no point having a tooling workshop, so we'll hold off on that for the time being. On the topic of ports, though, how is Sindh doing over here as far as its port is concerned? 7 weeks until it's done. Cool, so maybe after the war with Kalat is done, we'll quickly turn around and focus on Sindh, but we do have to be very careful about our infamy. If it gets to 100, we'll be in a lot of trouble, because getting to 100 means people will want to cut us down to size, and great powers from all around the world might declare war upon us. Though I do want to get Sindh before we are in debt, because again, opening up our ability to trade is extremely important. However, this war remains our focus for the time being. And with this final battle, it seems as though the entirety of Kalat has been put under our thumb. The only thing we have to wait for now is for their war support to actually hit -100, and then we can impose all of our demands. Oh, no, you know what? I was mistaken. It seems as though there's one tiny little tract of land left over here, but I'm sure this battle will be short-lived and a glorious victory for the Sikh Empire. But after that's done, we just have to wait until their war support hits -100. It'll probably happen before this battle is actually even completed, so that's wonderful. And that'll lead to their capitulation in just a moment's time over here. And come on. There it is. Beautiful. Baluchistan is now ours, and that means we will actually be able to go ahead and incorporate it pretty much right away. It's not very expensive. Beyond that, of course, we'll want to very quickly incorporate all of the states that we conquer, including Sindh, when the time does come, which might be now, actually. I mean, if we go to war with Sindh, right now this war continues against Russia. Their war support is quite low and dropping at a decent enough pace compared to on our side. Ooh, you know what, actually? The radicalization on our side is causing us some trouble. -0.33 compared to -0.27. Just trying to figure out how we can prevent things from worsening over here. Let's take a look at our decrees. And let's go ahead and... I was going to say get violence suppression going down. It might be a necessity, actually. I could get rid of... Violence suppression costs what? 75 authority. We're really short, are we? We're really quite short. Suppressing the landowners is causing us some trouble. If we take a look at our outliner over here and head to the landowners, done a decent job of reducing their clout. Why don't we stop suppressing them for the time being and go ahead to use violent suppression against the Baluchistani people. This will reduce the state penalties from turmoil, but it's more about that mortality increase, I think, which should help us reduce radicals, because a good way to reduce radicals, as you'll see here, is through pops dying. Events and other reasons, relying heavily on the pops dying there. That increase in radicals is actually going to cause us a bit of a challenge. I don't like that. We'll see how it plays out, though. The one thing I don't want to do is prolong this war and then have to give up anyway. In fact, truth be told, we won't be able to get it below 0 because they have their capital. Right. And without that, even if war support reaches 0, it's not like we'll be able to ask for war reparations. Right, of course. Foolish me. Slipped my mind. It is what it is, not the end of the world. We'll go ahead and allow for the white peace then, because it's the only one that will actually end this war swiftly now, so that we can turn our attention, yes, to Sindh and actually gain access to the seas. There you have it. There's our peace treaty, conquered Baluchistan. Everything else, well, doesn't matter, I suppose. And over to Sindh we go. To conquer this state, we'll have to potentially face off against Great Britain, Great Qing, and the East India Company. I dare the East India Company to get involved, actually. I'm feeling a little cocky, perhaps, though keep in mind this will increase our infamy rather significantly. What are we at right now? Still reputable. We're at 10. Alright, so we'll end up at about 35, which isn't the end of the world. If we overextend ourselves, it'll get worse and worse if we add more war goals should the East India Company get involved. But we might be okay. Now, what's the deal with the Great Qing? Did their diplomatic play already come to an end? It seems to be. That is unfortunate. I assume then that a treaty port has been opened. It has indeed. Great Britain is in China, and that means that they might actually get involved down over here. That would be unfortunate, but hey, what's life without risks? Let's go ahead and conquer the state of Sindh over here. Begin our diplomatic play, and we'll just see how this plays out. Nobody is interested in joining either side just quite yet, so that might work out in our favor. But let's not count our eggs before they hatch, our chickens before they hatch. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Now, as we're preparing for this war, let's take a look at our construction situation. Of course, after the paper mills are done, we'll want to go ahead and, as I was saying, build the iron mines in Kalat. So let's go ahead and get... let's just get the one done for now. 73 weeks is not how long I'm looking to wait. We're going to go ahead and push you up a little bit. 33 weeks. That's a lot more reasonable. By the time this war is done, I think we'll have the iron mines in Kalat, and then we'll work on the tooling workshops and actually start producing tools, which will help us tremendously in a variety of ways. So things are looking pretty good right now. Our relations with France and Portugal are improving at a decent rate as well. Great Qing also not really hating us either, which is promising. Like I said, if we can get a trade agreement with them, then eventually we can make a lot of money selling opium to them because they'll be forced to accept it. In fact, why don't we take a quick look right now at our export opportunities for opium? Yes, I guess it's not quite an option. There's still an active ban over here. Hopefully the British do something about that so that we can take advantage of their hard work. The Play for Power, an event in Punjab with Sher Kunwar, leader of the Petit Bourgeoisie, has made a remarkable play for power in the capital in order to secure a spot for Petit Bourgeoisie within the government. However, it's not entirely clear if they should be rewarded for their novel tactics. There's only one light in the street that leads to the petit bourgeoisie headquarters. There's also only one light inside. There, Shir Kunvar relaxes among the sumptuous mahogany furniture and velvet cushions. The lamp is identical to those that have been sent from the east. The ends justify the means, and our means are very, very justified. It's difficult to not believe him when he offers an inviting seat by his side. So if I recognize him for this, they will gain, extra political strength, or I can say not all is fair in love and war, which would reduce their political strength, but also reduce their approval. Now, the petit bourgeoisie, what exactly do you do here? Middle managers will increase our bureaucracy. Ooh, that's not terrible. And treasury bonds will reduce loan interest rates if we can get them all the way to plus 10 approval. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad, actually. It will make them a bit more powerful. It'll give them a bit more clout as it adds to their political strength. And as you can see, it looks as though our recent conquest has helped their clout quite a bit. For the time being, you know what, Shir Kunvar, we will recognize your actions here. It won't make them happier, but it won't make them unhappy. And that's what I'm thinking about here. I don't want them to get to xenophobia, extra radicals from discrimination, xenophobia. Xenophobia? Xeno? Anyway, we don't want that to happen, so fine. You'll be recognized for this, as much as I hate it. We'll allow it. And apart from that, let's take a look at our market really quickly to see exactly what's causing us trouble over here. Looks like, you know what? Overall, goods prices are all right. Goods prices are okay. It might be our higher strata of society that are suffering from the loss of standard of living. We'll get into the nitty-gritty at a later point in time. Oh, you know, it looks like there was a bit of a dip for everyone. It was like a tiny dip over here. I think that might be when we conquered Balochistan. We'll take a look at that in more detail after this diplomatic play, I think, has its run, because I'm sure circumstances will change drastically when this one's done. With that said, though, with the diplomatic maneuvers about halfway done, we should certainly mobilize some troops. I'm going to go ahead and get R20 against the 20 of Sindh. If we take a look at their barracks again, they have a shortage of goods, and they only have irregular infantry with cannon artillery. So we should be able to overpower them, especially with their goods shortage affecting them rather wildly. I do believe they're currently importing artillery from us as well. Let me just check over here. If we take a look at our artillery trades, it does look like, yes, they are importing from us. So a swift embargo should take care of that. We do not have enough influence to do it. Why don't we go ahead and stop improving relations with Awadh? That'll allow us to get this embargo going. And if we take a look at our trade situation over here, the cost of artillery right now is 100, which is exceedingly expensive. But if we go ahead and confirm this, and let a couple days pass, it'll go down to 92. And that'll make it a lot cheaper for our government, for our military goods expenses, and it'll also ensure that Sindh is suffering even further lack of military goods. I love the economic warfare side of war. I think it's just so cool when it works out like this. This is going to hurt them so much, and that means we actually don't have to mobilize too much of our army, so we can, again, reduce the cost to going to war, or rather of going to war. Just send Zorwar Singh over here to push against this front, the Pashtunistan Sindh front, and yeah, let that play out. All right, now we've got the paper mills finally upgraded. They've not been able to fully employ the mills because the paper they sell is currently selling for dirt cheap. That's obviously happening because no one's actually using the paper. Now, once we head on over to the government administration building and actually activate the filing cabinets, not only should we see bureaucracy go up, we should see our generated wealth, our budget go up a little bit as well, because the tax wastage will be gone. We should also see this number here change. If we go over to taxation capacity, we should see this change ever so slightly, which will, it'll make a bit of a difference. So over to filing cabinets for you, right? Oh, okay, that was a sudden spike and a sudden drop. Really, paper is still too expensive? Well, that's only the case because the paper mills are still employing people. They're not fully operational. They still have to employ people. Production rates need to increase, and then we'll actually see the price of paper drop. Right now, it's skyrocketed, but I assure you, as time moves forward, it will normalize. Fortunately, Great Britain at the bottom right corner there has declared themselves to be neutral in this diplomatic play, so things are looking very good for us. I don't think we'll have too much to worry about because the Great Qing have declared themselves neutral as well. Excellent. Excellent. And would you look at that? Sindh decided to back down. Beautiful. I love when that works out. We didn't have to fight a war. We didn't have to lose all that money and all those lives. Sindh has realized no one is on their side, so they've given up on the fight. And at the same time, you can see the paper mills are actually able to employ quite a few people now. We're seeing quite a few peasants become laborers and shopkeepers alike, and that'll really help change the overall just balance of our society. Hopefully, the radical count will start going down again after we make quick work of the situation in Sindh. This is very problematic, a little worrying, but hopefully, as people start to shift away from working in the farms and our reliance on peasants goes down a fair bit as well, we can actually switch our taxation policies to focus instead of on land-based taxation to use per capita taxation and eventually proportional and graduated. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as more of these buildings become more and more active. But beyond that as well, I mean, as you can see, the amount of paper being produced is going up by every week because with more employees, with more people actually operating these mills, we're getting more paper produced, and as that maxes out, we've kind of hit that tipping point where we're closer to average prices. So that should make a huge difference actually for our goods for government buildings costs. As you can see, there's a huge drop there. That's good to see. And now this is still a profitable business as well, with quite a few employees, again pulling from people who used to be peasants. With the Northwest secured, we can now focus our attention on securing Delhi and the rest of Punjab. It is actually a split state, with half of it, or I guess less than half of it, belonging to the East India Company. So I would very much like to secure that and Delhi during the same war if possible. It will cause us a fair bit of trouble as far as our infamy is concerned. There will be a huge spike from 32.9. It'll go all the way up to 72, I guess. And if we add even more war goals to the war, it'll spike us right up to 100, which I want to be very careful about, of course. Apart from that as well, as you can see, if we declare war on the East India Company, everybody's going to get involved. They have all of their puppets in the region, and Great Britain will be dragged in as well. But if we instead declare war on one of their puppets in the region, only the East India Company will get directly involved, and Great Britain might be too distracted to dive in. So we have to do a little bit of waiting over here to see exactly what Great Britain's going to get preoccupied with, and hopefully we'll find an opening to dive in precisely when our overall infamy has dropped as well, because again, when you hit that 100, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, so we want to avoid that as best as possible. The other thing we want to avoid is debt, so let's focus a little bit of attention on our economy right now, and let's spend some time securing our foothold before we start, pushing into the East India Company territories. Let's first of all incorporate Sindh. Even though it'll take a full 5 years to incorporate the entire state, as we're incorporating it, we'll actually slowly start acquiring land tax, income tax, and consumption taxes from the people living in the state. It'll slowly increase over time over the course of those 5 years, but of course, turmoil is going to cause some tax waste, and to counteract that, we're going to go ahead and get our violent suppression going on in Sindh as well. Baluchistan already has that going on, and if we look at Baluchistan, you'll see we are getting some money through taxation over here. It's not a lot, but every little bit counts. As you can see, it's already making a bit of a difference, but we're going to make a further difference by changing our budget. The government wages can be reduced, as can military wages. We don't care to keep our military happy right now or anything like that. We're not at war. We're going to keep taxation levels high, and this negative 2.69 will become a positive as soon as construction completes, right? We've got the iron mines going right now. I keep wanting to say steel mines. We've got the iron mines going right now, so they'll be built in 16 weeks time, and after the iron mines we have the tooling workshops, and they're kind of a bit of a cycle in terms of who uses what goods, so we have to build these two, I'd say, before we can stop construction perhaps for a little while and reacquire some gold reserves before we drain them or before we get too deeply into debt, and see how things go from there. Beyond that as well, I want to keep an eye on the radical situation. Of course, conquest causes plenty of radicalization, and we also have the preserve serfdom political movement right now, which is going to cause some radicalization over time as well. Hopefully serfdom gets abolished soon and this movement will actually abandon, and that'll help with radicalization. But until that happens, let's go ahead and try and keep our pops happy. Let's go ahead and try and help their standard of living so that we're at least trying to keep things in check. In order to do so, let's take a look at our market, and let's scroll on down to some of the extremely expensive higher tier goods. I do think that a lot of the radicalization is coming from the landowners and things like that, the aristocrats and the like. So why don't we go ahead and reduce the cost of some of these goods? For example, furniture, I think we'll need just one import route to get all the furniture we need. Let's bring it in from the French market because it is more productive. And apart from that helping our overall furniture costs, yeah, we can go ahead and take a look at luxury clothing as well. It'll go from 105 to what? If we pull in from the French market, let's go ahead and, yes, invest in those convoys. Sure. Ooh, the British market is a bit more productive. The Persian market's actually even better because it doesn't even use convoys. So, sure, let's pull in from the Persian market instead then, and that should help bring the price down. We might need to bring it in from another market as well. Let's go ahead and get them from who? You know what? Let's leave it be, and hopefully as it levels up, because right now it'll still be a level 1 trade route until it gets up to its predicted level of 2, and at that point in time we'll reassess the situation as far as luxury clothes are concerned. One more thing I would like to do with regards to luxury furniture is seek out, unentirely intended, the furniture manufactory over here and flip these guys over to luxury furniture production. That should help us make a bit more luxury furniture without hurting the price of regular furniture too much. And I think that'll help us just make this a more profitable business, increase wages, and also reduce the cost of luxury furniture. Beyond that, let's take a look and see if there's anything else we want to import. Bringing in some more artillery might be a good idea just to reduce the cost to the government. So why don't we go ahead and see if there's an import route we can establish. And sure, why not the Russian market? Fewer convoys required for that. It's a little less productive, but I don't want to be too reliant on a market that might embargo me when the next wars begin, right? So the Russian market it shall be. And with all of that said and done, we can take a look at how the economy proceeds. We'll take a look at building some export routes in few months or maybe even years time, because we want to be careful about bureaucracy, right? Each trade route eats away at our bureaucracy, and that's going to start causing tax waste, which we really can't afford. I do also want to take a look at our road maintenance decree over here at Baluchistan, because this should make the iron mines build a little bit more quickly than the 16 weeks currently predicted. With all that said and done, though, let's let time move forward a little bit and keep an eye on the radicals, our economy, and our loyalists as well, because it'd be nice to have a few more of those, while also making sure the armed forces don't enter into material waste, because that will make things a lot more expensive for us. So with that said, let's go ahead and see what the future holds. All right, it seems as though serfdom was not abolished, but this event over here calls our attention. Maharaja intervenes in political process. The Maharaja has taken a personal interest in the ongoing debate concerning serfdom abolished and has resolved to use his royal prerogative to ensure the law passes. Ranjit Singh seldomly intervenes directly in matters of law, relying instead on a system of delegation and personal influence for the efficient running of his realm. While legally the Maharaja may exercise his royal powers at will, doing so is sure to rile up both Republicans and opponents of the law in question. Now, if our will be done, then the intelligentsia will be a little upset at us. Let's see what that might do to us. They're already unhappy. Social criticism is hurting our prestige a little bit. That's not ideal, but it's also not the end of the world. It's not like a further negative is going to change things for the worse. Again, if they get angry, they might get involved in political movements and radicalize them, but we're not near there yet. I would eventually like to, I don't think I care too much at present for the intelligentsia's happiness. I do want them to have a decent bit of clout because I like some of their ideologies and the laws they'll be pushing, but don't really care so much for their approval rating per se, so fine. The Maharajas will be done, I think, because otherwise we'll be reducing the enactment success chance to like 4%. Alright, my will be done. Urban planning has been unlocked. That's fantastic. I don't think we'll be using it right away because we don't have enough of the higher level construction materials on hand to actually keep things affordable. We'll need both iron as well as tools to get these higher level construction sectors up and running. So we'll hold off a little bit because I don't want to, again, end up in debt just because we're trying to rush a couple of buildings. So we'll hold off a bit, but with that research done, we can move on now to academia. This is essential because after academia comes romanticism. And once we get romanticism, we'll be able to get agrarianism. I just want to highlight just how important this is because it will finally allow us to have an investment pool, which will make construction a lot more affordable at all times, pretty much. So that is a major focus as we move forward. With the iron mines here done, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our decrees and try to encourage resource industry. Why don't we go ahead and remove the road maintenance from Balochistan and replace it with, yes, encourage resource industry. Again, that's going to make a very big difference in increasing the throughput over here, which means, again, we'll make more iron for each tool that we actually use. Now, unfortunately, for the very near future, there aren't going to be enough tools in our nation to make this a sustainable business, but in a very short amount of time, that is to say in 40 weeks, which is about a year, almost just short, we'll actually have the tooling workshops done as well, and that should allow us to supply tools for the iron mines. The other option, of course, is to import some tools. We have, I think, just enough bureaucracy to allow us a little bit of tax waste with an additional trade route. So why don't we go ahead and take the chance over here? We'll import from the Russian market, I suppose, or you know what? Why don't we go ahead and import from the Qing market? No convoys used up. It's the least terribly productive, so sure, we'll do that, and hopefully it'll keep prices down and it'll keep the iron flowing as more employees come through to work at the iron mines. Again, we're pulling people away from the subsistence farms. We're pulling peasants away from being, well, peasants to being laborers and shopkeepers and things like that. As you can see over here, a couple of laborers from other workplaces are joining in as well. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Dye plantations in particular right now are probably not extremely profitable because dyes are super cheap in the Sikh Empire at the present moment. So once we have a bit more bureaucracy, I think we'll consider, again, managing some of those exports and stuff to make sure more of our businesses are as profitable as possible. This isn't ideal. The petit bourgeoisie is not too happy, and as a result of that, we have xenophobia, which is causing a lot more radicalization from discrimination. But the low government wages are hurting. So why don't we go ahead and just ever so slightly increase our government wages? That's not the end of the world. It also will hurt our prestige a little bit less as well. Either way, with that distraction aside, let's keep an eye on, of course, these iron mines, and let's keep an eye on the construction of the tooling workshops as well. They should be done in, again, no time. With the iron mines now maxed out, with iron actually flowing, and with tools being as cheap as they are, I do think we can afford the upgrade to our construction sector. So what would have taken 29 weeks once we upgrade to iron frame buildings is going to take a fair bit less time. As we flip over to the next week, you'll see we go from 29 weeks. Normally you'd expect to go to 28 weeks, but instead we're going to go down to 15 weeks. That is no small change. Of course, yes, it is a bit more expensive. As a result, you can see our construction goods cost skyrocketed there a fair bit, but it's okay because we'll be spending more money for significantly less amounts of time. So overall, it should balance out, or it might be a little bit more expensive, though it does free us up to start making money again a bit more quickly. Excellent, the cotton gin has been unlocked, and while we don't have any cotton plantations yet, we will be acquiring them as we push through East India Company territory. So this will be nice to have on hand to make sure the production methods stay as high as possible, and it looks like it's the knowledge of the lathe that is spreading towards us. Okay, fair enough, that's good stuff. Either way, we have little control over what's actually spreading to us. I will happily take the lathe. At the same time, it seems as though we have to deal with this duel over here. Ganda Mulraj has challenged Jassamal to a duel to the death. The aura surrounding their two figures is like something out of a romantic novel. Jassamal smiles. He has been rehearsing this moment before falling asleep. Ganda Mulraj, you are a foolish fool. Your insults cannot go unanswered. Pick a weapon of choice, and we shall meet tomorrow. Who are these two individuals? Ganda Mulraj is what? A politician. He is the, I suppose, leader of the industrialists. Indeed he is. He's an abolitionist, which, alright, fair enough. I mean, we already are banning slavery, if memory serves me correctly. So him being around is actually quite helpful to the overall happiness of the industrialists, so I would rather not have him die if we let them fight. Otherwise, Jassamal, who are you? Another politician? You are in charge of the Sikh priesthood, I assume. Yes, he's a theocrat. He endorses state religion and strongly endorses theocracy. These are actually things we'd like to shut down, truth be told. So I wouldn't mind if he were to die. However, I don't think we should let them fight because it's a 50-50 chance either way. We can simply stop it. It'll hurt both of their popularity, or we should ban dueling entirely. But that would make the landowners quite upset. And if we make the landowners any more upset, we're going to get precariously close to having them be angry, and they're going to be the ones that mostly oppose all of our sort of attempts at modernizing our society and looking to the future. So if they are angry, they'll actually radicalize all of their political movements, and we'll see revolution after revolution. So we have to be very careful about not upsetting them. So instead, we will simply stop the duel from happening, as opposed to banning it outright and making the landowners that much closer to being angry. Fair enough, we should stop it. Tarnish their honor. Let it be. And now, as the tooling workshops complete, you'll see our economy recovers because we're no longer spending money on construction goods. So hopefully it'll stay in the positive. Hopefully we'll see some of the gold reserves make a bit of a return, and then we can reinvest in further constructions. Currency standards unlock. Meanwhile, that'll allow us to research banking, which is not a bad thing to have, as it does reduce loan interest rates, but also increases minting. That's a long way away because currently we're still researching academia. That'll be 13 months, and then romanticism I think will be another 23 months on top of that. So it'll be some time before we research banking, but for the time being, I will take currency standards. Thank you very much. And it looks like mass communication has taken the mantle over here. Army reserves have been unlocked as well. It's great to see so much research unlocking back to back to back. We're still in like the same month pretty much. That adds to our conscriptable battalions. That's all well and good, but it's more general staff that I find intriguing here, because that will unlock skirmish infantry for us. Those skirmish infantry do require ammunition on top of small arms. Right now, our barracks just need small arms and artillery, but going to skirmish infantry will include the need for ammunition. So it's something we have to be careful about, but again, that's still a ways away, since we do have to actually research general staff before we get there, and it seems as though Napoleonic warfare is spreading now instead. That'll give us access to mobile artillery, which is quite handy as well. It's got a much higher kill rate and offense rating, if memory serves me correctly, and extra morale damage, as well as extra provinces captured. So that's not too shabby at all. This is nice to have spread towards us, 10 to 17 months, hopefully in time for our war against the East India Company. Again, we should be able to push that right now if we wanted. Oh, you know what? We're still infamous. We might still be okay, but I do want to make sure that maybe Great Britain is distracted with another diplomatic play or war elsewhere before we dive in against the East India Company, because if Great Britain doesn't get involved, there are huge benefits to us in the long term as well. On further investigation, it looks like meat is still prohibitively expensive in the Sikh market, so that is far from ideal. But in order to counteract that, we're not actually going to do any importing. Instead, we're simply going to head on over to one of our livestock ranches and get them using butchering tools. Yes, I could very much go over to all of our buildings and get all of our livestock ranches in one fell swoop using the butchering tools. However, I don't think we have enough tools to sustain all of them. In fact, we don't even have enough tools to sustain just the one. The reason why we lack tools is because the tooling workshops were not profitable previously, because the price of tools was so far down, because basically nobody was using them outside of when we were doing construction. Now with the price of tools skyrocketing again, it should be possible for the tooling workshops to employ more people. We'll have more tools, they'll be less expensive, and we'll find that equilibrium. That's what it's all about, right? Finding that point of balance. Iron is still prohibitively expensive, so why don't we go ahead and upgrade these iron mines? And while we're doing that, yes, we'll be losing a lot of money. It'll last 15 weeks, give or take, losing about 12k per week. I mean, we'll definitely go into a deficit. Starting to take some loans over here. Interest isn't getting too bad. That's manageable. Another 7 weeks of construction remains, and I think we'll be fine to wipe that interest out relatively quickly after the iron mines have been upgraded. Right, there we go. Crisis averted. Price of iron drops immediately after construction is done, but also in the long term, I think it'll help just keep it at a lower price even when we are doing construction, and at the same time, it will take some time to wipe out all of our debt. So let's hold off on any adventurous expenses in case war does break out. We want to make sure we have a bit of a buffer at the very least. You know what? I think it's time to accept the fact that government wages need to be reduced a little bit further. That adds a whole extra K. Because I would like to clear our debt sooner rather than later. To hell with our prestige. Let it drop temporarily. We'll try and secure our economy, because really this can be a very big problem if we don't keep it in check. This is an interesting turn of events. The Punjabi culture has become obsessed with meat. That can be a bit of a problem. We just have to make sure we keep prices down, because meat has been historically expensive in our market, but and it seems it's expensive once more. Fair enough. Tools right now are middling in price. I think we can afford to get more of our livestock ranches perhaps producing meat as well. It looks as though we will need to, because otherwise people will start to get upset, and I'm just not sure how sustainable this will be. Let's go ahead and get you with butchering tools as well. Keep an eye out on the price change, and we'll see how it plays out. I do want to mention really quickly, I do find it funny that Punjabi is spelt incorrectly, or in its alternative spelling over here. Typically, if you're going to spell Punjabi with the A, like Punjabi, like just to differentiate from a sound perspective, you would refer to Punjab as Punjab, like P-A-N, stays P-A-N, but they refer to the state as Punjab, and so the culture should also be Punjabi with a U. Both spellings are correct, but it's a matter of like consistency, I guess. And Punjabi with a U is far more common than Punjabi with an A. Interesting, actually, fun fact time, because Punjab gets its name from its rivers. Punjab comes from Panch Ab. Panch is P-A-N-C-H when it's transliterated, and it means 5, and Ab is rivers. And as you see here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rivers flowing through Punjab, the land of 5 rivers. There you go, a little mini history lesson and cultural insight for you if you're interested in that kind of thing. I just find this rather funny. I also find it funny, actually, if you go to Sindh, you'll see the population over here are considered Sindhi, and that is also not the correct spelling. The Sindhi people, without the H, are, I believe, from somewhere around here, if memory serves me correctly, around the Black Sea. But Sindhi with an H, which is Sindhi, completely different sound, they are from Sindh. So a couple of funny typos in here that it would be nice to see corrected, but I mean, they're not the end of the world. Anyway, let's set all that aside and look for progress in our nation, shall we? Wow, the price of meat has gotten even higher since we increased production. This is going to be potentially extremely challenging. Again, everybody needs meat from wealth level 1 to 99, and now their obsession is going to really increase how much people consume meat. I mean, okay, you know what, here we go. Over to buildings, over to livestock ranches, and set all of them to butchering tools, and let's see if that makes a difference, because this is going to get absolutely wild otherwise. If we go for an import route, we do have some options. The Qing market will provide us with quite a bit, actually, and a decent bit of productivity as well. It'll hurt our tax wastage a bit, but you know what, I think we need to do it. All right, so it looks like it's going to be pretty expensive until we're able to produce more. Fair enough, it is what it is. We've tried our best. At least we've brought it down from its highest point, and it's quite possible we can set up additional import routes. We are able to bring in more from elsewhere. However, I think we'll need probably more convoys to allow some of these to grow, and in order to do that, we'll want to upgrade our port. So let's hold off on those lower level trade routes until we can actually expand our port, and we're not going to do that until we're able to afford it and wipe our debt as well, of course. So let's hold off on that for the time being. Who deserves the credit? Recent investments in Punjab towards our tea plantations has brought into question who should get the credit for the boost in investment. However, opinions seem to be split. Where the credit lies is the question most wondered. To the owners of the field and the organizers of the harvest, or the ordinary people who work the fields day and night, whose sweat and blood water the fields? I think it goes to the people whose sweat and blood waters the field. If we give the landowners credit, they will get a bit more powerful over time, since they'll be attracting more pops to them. Their clout has been steadily increasing, which I do not like. Again, they're going to be the biggest opposition to all the changes we want to make, so we actually want to keep them weak without investing in suppressing them. So this isn't ideal. If we give the farmers credit, then they will instead move towards rural folk, who I think are much more in keeping with the kind of pushes I think we want to make. Again, they endorse agrarianism. We want them to be powerful as well, so the more pops that go to them, the better we will feel. Apart from that, they are particularist, which doesn't really affect us in any way in terms of anything I want to push. And they're also isolationist, which is actually not what I would like. But for that agrarianism, at least, we want them to be somewhat powerful without overdoing it. So rather than finding someone else to credit, which would be the Sikh priesthood, who Pius gives us religious schools, which isn't too bad. They also like charity hospitals. They're not the worst, but we don't want them to become a mainstay. They already have enough clout, I would say. So the farmers deserve the credit. You know, everywhere I look, it looks like meat is one of the most expensive aspects of life across all walks of life. Whether it's the aristocrats who are affluent, they want meat and they also need paper to be a bit cheaper, good to know, or if it's the peasants who also want meat, that is by far the most expensive good in our market. And like I said, it's an obsession and everybody wants it, and so it cannot be this expensive. I think we'll have to take on a bit more tax waste perhaps. Let's go ahead and establish another import route. Let's go ahead and bring it in from the French market, because that way it'll actually grow eventually when we are able to upgrade our port. So French market it shall be. And I don't know if that'll be enough. That still isn't going to look like enough to me. So let's go ahead and get this port upgraded. It'll take 16 weeks. Why don't we go ahead and get our road maintenance going, not over anywhere else, but over here. Looks like I don't have enough authority for that. The other option is, of course, to change our construction sector from using this construction method to using wooden buildings again. It's significantly cheaper. It will take significantly longer, 27 weeks instead, but I do think it's worth reducing how much more interest we take on. Beyond that as well, I could take a look at our trade routes and see if there are any unproductive ones I want to get rid of. Let's get rid of this one, luxury furniture. It'll make it a bit more expensive, unfortunately, but hopefully it'll help with the reduced tax wastage. I can't get rid of these ceramics because I think that is going to become prohibitively expensive for our higher strata of society, and then they're going to start getting upset and radicalization will continue to skyrocket, which again we're trying to avoid over here. At least furniture remains somewhat affordable, a little bit higher than the norm, but at an acceptable level, I would say. Now, let's go ahead and see just how much of a difference this port makes when it finally gets done. And there you have it. Academia has been unlocked. Wonderful. So now we can get university buildings going when we can afford to actually build things properly. But more importantly, for now, we can get romanticism going, which will again allow us to get agrarianism in 23 months' time. Of course, it'll be a bit of a process, though, as enacting serfdom abolished has been as well. 35.4% chance of success. Come on. Give me something here. Give me something here. I would love to see this go through. 11th of November is when we'll see how the vote plays out. I just wonder if we can't, like, what can I do to further increase the chance of this coming through? Is the intelligentsia in the government? Let's go ahead and take a quick peek over here. They are not. I could reform the government to bring them in. What will it do to this? 35.3%, right? Becomes 43.1%. That is well worth it, I think. It does extend the amount of time taken by a handful of days because it hurts the legitimacy of our government, but it's not by that much. So hopefully this does the trick. Come on, it's a 43% chance. Come on, work for me here, baby. God damn, are you for real? Still nothing? What do we have here? Bureaucratic imbroglio? I've never heard that word before. Lawmakers working towards the enactment of serfdom abolished have found themselves mired in a particularly complex set of bureaucratic proceedings, grinding the work towards reform to a near halt. The fully developed bureaucratic apparatus compares with other organizations exactly as does the machine with the non-mechanical modes of production. Damn, this labyrinthine legal system will reduce enactment success chance, and it'll increase enactment time or cut through at least some of the red tape. It'll hurt our bureaucracy, which is not ideal. It'll also make bureaucrats a bit more radical as we cut through the red tape, and it will increase enactment time. You know what? I can't take a hit to success chance. Cut through that red tape. Cut through it. Cut through it all for all I care. 16th August of 3 years from now. My God, it's going to take forever to get serfdom abolished. Looks like meat is finally affordable. That's nice to see. Hopefully it'll help with this trouble over here. Port's almost done, but we have a clipper shortage coming up, so why don't we go ahead and establish an import route over here, get the French market involved, I suppose. Sure, it's a nice productive trade route, and that should keep prices down and performance high. Yes, please, thank you. And as expected, this upgrade to the ports has made actually sustaining the ports that much more pricey. Clippers are extremely expensive because of how much they're being used, and that of course takes money away from the government because of the, well, cost of clippers. Why don't we go ahead and import some more, I suppose. We'll bring them in from the Portuguese market, or actually from the Omani market. It's a less worse option there, and we'll see just how much of a difference that actually makes, and hopefully we'll see the price come back down, because right now we're not making nearly enough money to be sustainable. This is nowhere near ideal. We could further reduce government wages. It's something, I suppose, but this is going to be a serious problem if it stays that expensive. Looks like we have at least a couple of inactive trade routes. Not sure what happened there, but whatever the reason might be, we're going to go ahead and cancel these two. It might be that these guys are at war, right? Oh, yeah, the Russian market. They're not at war or anything. Did they embargo us and I missed it? Not that I know. Either way, we're going to go ahead and cancel these two. It'll reduce the bureaucracy usage, and that should help us make a bit more money because of reduced tax wastage, right? That reduced tax wastage goes a long way. Plus, on top of that, of course, as you might imagine, Sindh is very close to being incorporated, 29 months left, and Balochistan still has 17 years to go. But as I mentioned previously, we've got at least some taxes coming through from these states, which is being hurt by turmoil. I would very much like to see turmoil go down, but again, that is a result of radicalization, and it just keeps skyrocketing. It just keeps skyrocketing. And the armed forces are upset. That's not ideal. We could increase how much we pay them, and that should help get rid of material waste, but as you can see, that actually hurts our economy even more. This is... oh, actually, no, looks like we found the sweet spot there with material waste deactivated. We are starting to refill our gold reserves, and pretty soon we'll go ahead and take a look at some more construction options. I am really leaning towards increasing our paper mill sizes. Paper is also extremely expensive and used not just by the government, but also by many pops of various wealth levels, and maybe having more paper will help with, again, the radicalization and just the cost of living and standard of living as well. So that might be the next move. I'm not sure how much it'll actually cost. It'll cost us 6.16k weekly. 6k weekly means -4 roughly weekly, -4 weekly over the course of how many weeks? Oh, that's a lot of math. 450, that's 45 weeks, give or take. You know what, that's a bit much without hurting our gold reserves. Alternatively, what happens if I go ahead and turn this to iron frame buildings, and then go ahead to check over here, it'll still be 450, but over the course of, let's say our construction production right now is 20, which would make this into, what is that, 12.5 weeks. Let's call it 13 weeks. 13 weeks, but it'll cost us 15, let's call it 16k per week. 16 becomes about 13k per week. That is, oh boy, that's about 169k. That's much more expensive, isn't it? Unless I did my math horribly wrong, in which case feel free to correct me in the comments. Let's go back to wooden buildings for the time being, and we will take a look at upgrading these paper mills when we have about 90k in our gold reserves. And if I've done my math correctly, we should be okay. We should be able to afford that outside of course, costs, fluctuating here and there. And there you have it. Finally, we have abolished serfdom. It took us a very long time. I really wish it actually gave you a bit of a summary as to how long it took to push policy through. This is huge. With serfdom abolished, we can make a lot of big changes to our approach to everything, really. Beyond that, abolishing serfdom should hopefully make an adjustment with regards to radicals as well. The political movement will hopefully disband. So we're at 2.71 million radicals right now. For a little bit of time pass, if we get rid of restore serfdom, will it go away, or is there enough support to actually keep it around? There might be. We really need to try and suppress these guys, don't we? Either way, at least their clout has dropped significantly, because again, maintaining serfdom was keeping their clout up by another 50%, I believe it was. So this is good. This is good, and hopefully we'll see a slow reduction in radical count as well, or at least a reduction in how quickly it's been going up. I'm not sure why our economy took such a big hit. I suppose abolishing serfdom does have its costs as well. Making so much money just moments ago, it seemed. If I do bring this down, what are we looking at in terms of the armed forces? They are unhappy. There's a material waste, and that's hurting a lot. Fair enough. Got to keep that up then, I suppose. Get rid of material waste, and not ideal. Not ideal. It looks like the big spike came from government wages and military wages going up. And that's actually terrifying, because how do we counteract that beyond just reducing their overall wages from our budget? I'm a little concerned about that. We could take a look at getting some more consumption taxes going. We could perhaps stop some of our decrees, which are currently costing us a fair bit of authority. I suppose we could reduce the suppression of the people in Sindh. Maybe that'll do the trick. I don't know, because again, the suppression is reducing the tax waste from turmoil, right? So there's a bit of a give and take everywhere. But with that authority, are we even able to get some consumption taxes going? No, I need a fair bit more. So why don't we go ahead and get rid of our other decree here as well for the violent suppression over here at Balochistan. And then we can take a look at maybe adding another consumption tax. Getting liquor taxed is going to be a little harmful, because again, pretty much everybody actually drinks liquor. All wealth levels, as you can see, so it might cause a bit of radicalization, but we do need to keep our economy afloat. That will allow us to accumulate some wealth at a very slow rate, and then hopefully we can turn that around into more things that make us more money. We need to consider perhaps additional tariffs for certain goods. I mean, meat right now is our biggest tariffed item. Are we able to increase how much money we're making off of meat? Perhaps a little bit. We're at 1.07. Tariffs off of meat right now are 1.38k. If we go ahead and increase those tariffs, we go to, wow, are you for real? That is absolutely huge. This obsession could actually work in our favor in some ways, but will this shrink to level 3? It will. And will this shrink down to level 5? It will. So we'll see fewer goods actually making the moves back and forth, but I think we'll still be able to make enough off of tariffs to keep us afloat moving forward. It's absolutely essential because, again, abolishing serfdom was important regardless of what it does to things like wages, but of course we want to make sure we are making money, and very soon I think we will be going to war with the EIC, just waiting for Great Britain to get involved in a Oh, now this is interesting. This is interesting. It looks like Great Britain is directly involved in supporting the United States in their current situation against the Confederate States of America. And that means they might just be a little too distracted if we were to dive in to take Jaisalmer and drag the East India Company in as well. As you can see, Great Britain might join either side or remain neutral, and that, my good friends, is where we're calling it a session. Next time, we're going to begin with this war against the EIC and begin our conquest of the rest of the subcontinent before we turn around and chase after Great Britain. I hope you enjoyed this session. If you did, you know what to do. Let me know down below by leaving a like and a comment. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I read through all of the comments. If you have any feedback to share, go for it. Or if you're excited to see something in particular, let me know. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.